Hey guys, what's up? So I really believe that this year is the year of foldables. Up until now, they were kind of a niche product, mostly for tech enthusiasts, the early adopters or tech reviewers like myself. They were thick, a bit clunky, and really expensive. And while the price is still a bit of an issue, foldables have truly come into their own. They're slimmer, they've got better battery life, the creases are barely noticeable anymore, and the front displays are almost as wide and as good as any flagship phone. So I think we can finally say that foldables are ready for the mainstream and have become a real viable replacement for conventional smartphones. Last week I reviewed the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7, and today I want to have a chat with you guys about its little brother, the Galaxy Z Flip 7. Let's ramble.
Hold up, place go wild when I pull up. They all on me like it once.
One of the reasons I'm so excited about Samsung's new foldables is the fact that Samsung has been leading the pack when it comes to these foldables pretty much since day one. And I say pretty much since day one because technically the first commercially available foldable was a device called the Royale Flax Pi. That was released in 2018. Now that phone was kind of a mess. It looked and felt very much like a prototype that probably should have never left the lab, but hey, at least they had the plan to put something on the market that was truly innovative. Not long after that, Samsung launched their first foldable phone, the Galaxy Fold, in 2019, and it was the first foldable phone that really caught people's attention. And while it still had plenty of bugs and design issues, it looked and felt leaps ahead of the clunky Flex Pi. But Samsung went back to the drawing board and launched a new version every year since then, bringing improvements with every new version until they absolutely nailed it, in my opinion, with this year's Galaxy Z Fold 7. In 2020, Samsung added the Z Flip to the mix, a smaller clamshell version of the Z Fold, which made a big splash on the mobile phone scene as well. Now, whether you're a Samsung fan or not, there's no denying that Samsung has always been willing to innovate and to try new things, even if that meant taking a few hits here and there. And I believe that persistence is now paying off big time with these two bangers. And no, the Z Flip 7 is not perfect, of course it's not, and we'll get to all of the gripes I have with it, but it's getting pretty darn close. Now, let's have a quick look at the design. I heard some people complaining about the thickness, especially since the new Galaxy Z Fold 7 is so thin, but don't forget that this is basically just half a Fold 7, so it's quite impossible to cram what is essentially the same amount of tech into a body half the size. So yeah, it is inevitably thicker than the Fold 7. And yes, there is the S25 Edge, and that is thinner too, sure, but that doesn't fold, so it's a lot easier to allocate the components into a body like that. With that said, I actually like the fact that it's a bit chunkier. It's already quite a small device when folded. I don't think I'd want it to be much thinner, to be honest. This feels right, it feels like I'm holding something of substance, and it feels like it can take a drop or two. The hinge also feels quite strong, and closing it gives me this very satisfying snap. There's absolutely no gap because of the raised bezels. There is, however, this little space between the raised bezels and the actual fold that will inevitably pick up some dirt and some pocket lint. The same is true for the camera lenses. They protrude quite a bit, and I feel the need to pull out my microfiber because dust and grime does collect around these lenses quite easily. I love this blue color. It is my favorite color option on the Fold 7, and it looks great on this little guy too. Like its big brother, the crease on the Z Flip is getting less visible with every iteration, although the crease on the Flip will always be more noticeable than on the Fold, simply because your thumb will be sliding over it all the time when using the touchscreen. All in all, I think the Flip 7 is designed beautifully, especially with that new edge-to-edge cover display. Speaking of the display, out of the box, not very usable, a couple of wallpapers, some which are pretty nifty, and a few pretty basic widgets. You can add some additional widgets, but the selection is quite limited. However, if you go into the cover screen section in the settings menu, you'll see an option, use main screen navigation on cover screen, which is part of Samsung Labs. For maximum customization, I just toggled everything on, but even Labs will give you only a handful of additional apps. There are nice additions like Google Maps, which might actually be one of my favorite apps to use on the cover screen. There's Netflix and YouTube, so you can watch your favorite content on the cover display as well, and WhatsApp. The real cheat code lies underneath the button at the bottom of the settings menu where it says Get Multi-Star. If you tap on that and add multi-star, you'll be able to add most, if not all, of your apps directly to the cover screen in a neat little launcher. And that solves, at least to a certain extent, one of the main issues I had with this type of foldable, and that is that I had to open up the phone to use anything other than a widget. With this little hack, the cover display becomes way more usable and the phone is instantly more interesting to me as a user. A little tip, Multistar is actually part of the Good Lock suite, which includes a whole host of useful little customization apps and extensions just like Multistar that let you customize your phone as much as you want. And I do need to give props to Samsung for developing this and giving us all these customization options, quite the departure from the walled garden approach Apple takes with their iPhones and their iPads. Now obviously, most apps typically won't be optimized for use on a display like that, so some will work better than others. It does help that you can switch between the 16:9 view, a full screen view, and one that cuts out the cameras so they don't get in the way of any buttons. Still, for some apps, even that won't be enough. My favorite emailing app, Spark Email, is perfect to quickly read my incoming emails, but as soon as I want to reply, the keyboard takes up most of the screen and I can't even read what I'm typing. So for replies, I will have to open the flip to continue on the main display. With that said, I've been having a lot of fun trying out what apps work well on the cover display, and some of them actually look surprisingly good. I already mentioned Google Maps looking really awesome, but my favorite thing to do is use Gemini on the cover screen. It actually makes me feel like I'm from the future visiting all your primitives. And let's not forget, it wasn't until the Z Flip 5 that Samsung introduced a larger sized cover display to begin with. Before that, the tiny corner screen was basically just a collection of awkward little widgets and a viewfinder for selfies. So yeah, this new cover display actually taking advantage of the entire front screen definitely feels like a leap. And the fact that both displays offer 2600 nits of brightness really adds to the experience using this thing outside. Now, the main display. This is actually the part I struggle with the most. The dimensions are a little awkward. I mean, it's kind of like a regular smartphone, but not really. It's rather narrow and tall, which makes it a little less comfortable to type on. Now, you do get used to that pretty quickly, but when watching content, for instance, you're gonna lose a lot of screen real estate because of the strange dimensions. Watching videos in their native aspect ratio, which will typically be 16:9, means you won't be able to take advantage of the full width of the screen. Instead, you get these rather big black bars on the side, essentially leaving you with a smaller image than you would have gotten on most regular smartphones. You can blow up the image to fit the screen, but that will cut off parts of the top and the bottom, so I wouldn't really recommend that either. But that is when you're watching videos with the flip folded open. If you fold the screen 90 degrees, basically propping it up on a desk or a table, while the viewable surface shrinks even more, the phone turns into a little media console, which is pretty cool, I have to admit. You can either use YouTube Premium controls, or you can hit the folded phone icon in the bottom, which will put the phone into flex mode, giving you even more control options. You can even turn it into a mini laptop with a touchpad and a virtual scroll wheel that actually lets you zoom in and out. You can take screenshots, screen recordings, you can even multitask by opening a second app on the bottom half of the screen. Now, if you really want to go full nerd mode, you could even hook up a Bluetooth keyboard and a mouse to this thing and do some actual work. This might sound a little crazy, but if you get yourself one of those little foldable Bluetooth keyboards, you could actually make this work as what is undoubtedly one of the most portable setups you will ever find. I can see myself doing some research, maybe have a YouTube video open on top while typing up some notes in Notion at the bottom. And now you can even run Dex from this thing. I mean, Dex is still kind of a meh experience as far as desktop experiences go, but I'm old enough to appreciate the mere fact that we have a freaking full-blown computer that is literally the size of a little compact mirror in our pockets. Just find a monitor with a USB-C connection and you're off to the races. You can either hook up a keyboard and a mouse using Bluetooth, or simply use the phone as a trackpad and operate it like that. I like how the trackpad conveniently turns into a keyboard whenever you click on a typable surface. Do I see myself using this a lot? Probably not, but it's really cool that it's there if I ever do find myself in a pinch. Leads me to the performance on the Flip 7. I know a lot of people are upset that Samsung chose to go with the Exynos chip on this one instead of the superior Snapdragon chip like we see on the Fold 7. And yes, it is an inferior chip on paper, and in all the benchmark tests, the Snapdragon will run circles around it, but in real life, will you really notice? I can't say I do actually. If you're a gamer, maybe some games might be capped a little in terms of performance, but for my personal use case, I've yet to find something the Flip 7 can't do, nor have I seen it chug or even overheat. It gets warm when I'm filming for extended periods of time, for instance, but there's a big difference between getting warm and overheating. Aside from the chip, the rest of the spec sheet on the Flip 7 looks pretty great. Now, it almost goes without saying that the battery will be relatively small. At 4,300 mAh, you might find yourself running out of juice by the end of the day if you're a power user. It's also a relatively slow charge, maxing out at 25 watts wire charging and 15 watts when charging wirelessly. If you want to know literally everything there is to know about how the battery performs on this thing, please go and check my friend Ben's channel. He's the absolute GOAT when it comes to this stuff. The guy runs full day live streams to test these things in real time. There's really no point in me telling you all of this stuff. Just go watch his videos. You'll thank me later. Now let's talk about the camera, which I believe is one of the main selling points of this phone. Not necessarily because it's the best camera system in Samsung's lineup, it's not, but because of the way this phone caters to the needs of creators and other types of shutterbugs. The hardware is pretty much the same as on the last flip, 50 megapixel wide camera, 12 megapixel ultra wide, no telephoto lens. But the image processing has improved visibly, so everything just looks a bit better, especially in low light situation. Mainly thanks to the new camera ISP and the new AI photonic engine. Unfortunately, it has no real telephoto capabilities, only software zoom, and the software zoom isn't very good. Using a 2x or a 3x zoom, you're going to be fine, but anything more than that and things are going to be looking like they're shot on an 80s camcorder. So yeah, don't expect to shoot any close-ups of your favorite artists from all the way up in the nosebleeds because you cheaped out on the tickets again. But if you're not too fussed about the zoom, the rest of the camera experience is actually pretty solid. And all the extra gimmicks are actually really useful. The much bigger flex window is so nice when taking selfies. I mean, there's really no good reason anymore to use the selfie camera on the inside when you have a massive viewfinder right on the cover screen. Also, this thing is its own little tripod, and that is so much more useful than I thought it would be. I actually use this all the time. Being able to use hand gestures to trigger the shutter really helps with that. The camera is also able to keep not just you, but your buddies in focus, and it's got follow mode, whereby it crops in on itself and then uses the rest of the frame to mimic a gimbal experience. So it actually looks like the camera follows you around. Very cool for solo shooters. It can shoot log, by the way, and I will definitely do that when I plan to include the footage into my YouTube videos. It's easier to match the colors that way, and it gives me a bit more room to play with things like exposure. But for everyday stuff and family videos, I actually like Samsung's color science, so I'm happy to shoot on auto. Now, one of the things that blew me away the most on the Fold 7 was the photo AI capabilities, most notably the generative AI. I mean, it was able to see through a bunch of trash blocking a graffiti mural, and by scraping the web for images of said mural, it was actually able to fill in the blanks almost to perfection, so you could actually see what the mural looks like underneath instead of just showing a blank wall. Well, I'm happy to report that the Flip 7 can do all those amazing things as well. We went to see the famous mannequin Piss in Brussels, loosely translated as the Pissing Boy. You might see where he gets his name, and that thing is always crowded. The generative AI works so good, you would think that I had the whole place to myself. So guys, what can I say about this phone? I kinda love it. Now, in terms of recommendations, I would say this. If you're a power user or you rely heavily on your phone's camera and you need that zoom lens, the Flip 7 is probably not going to be your best pick. And it might be wiser to look into something like the Fold 7 or for the cameras, a Samsung S25 Ultra. But if you're looking for a phone that is super fun to use, something that actually feels innovative and even a little futuristic at times, all while delivering more than capable performance on all fronts, I think the Flip 7 is actually a lot of phone for $1,000. And if you take advantage of one of the many deals that are going on, you'll probably be able to pick it up for even less than that. And if you can appreciate the Flip 7 for what it is, I think you will love it, and I feel totally confident recommending this phone. Guys, let me know in the comments what you think. Would you ditch your current phone to rock one of these? I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a like if you did, and if you didn't like it, just hit dislike twice. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.